History isn't just about dates and battles. It's about real people facing impossible odds. It's about the choices they make, the courage they summon, and the legacy they leave behind. Today we're diving deep into the story of one such man, a young Filipino pilot whose name echoes through the halls of Philippine history, César Basa. To Batangas, December 12th, 1941. The air is thick, heavy, and the war is only days old for the Philippines. The Japanese invasion has just begun, and the country is reeling from the shock of the attack on Pearl Harbor and the rapid advance of enemy forces across Southeast Asia. Lieutenant César Basa, just 26, is sweating on the ground after a long reconnaissance flight, his P-26 pea shooter almost running on fumes. He's tired, maybe even scared, but before we get to this fateful day, let's rewind a bit and get to know the man behind the legend. César Basa was born in 1915 in Isabela, a province in northern Luzon. Growing up, he was known for his quiet determination and sharp mind. He excelled in school, eventually earning a spot at the Philippine Military Academy, where he trained alongside other future heroes. Even as a cadet, Basa stood out, not for being the loudest or the boldest, but for his discipline, his sense of duty, and his unwavering focus. When the Philippine Army Air Corps was formed, Basa was among the first to volunteer for flight training. He learned to fly on the P-26 pea shooter, a nimble but outdated fighter by the standards of 1941. Still, for Basa and his fellow pilots, these planes represented hope, a chance to defend their homeland from the looming threat of war. Life on the airfields was tough. The pilots were young, many just out of school, and resources were scarce. They shared stories, dreams and fears, forging bonds that would be tested in the crucible of battle. For Basa, every flight was a test, not just of skill, but of character. Fast forward to that December morning, the distant roar. That's the sound of more than 50 Japanese planes bearing down on his airfield. The Japanese had launched a massive air campaign targeting military installations across Luzon, their goal to cripple the Philippine defenses before they could even get off the ground. Now, Basa could have stayed put. His plane was low on fuel and the odds were overwhelming. Most would have hesitated, weighed the risks, maybe even chosen to wait for a better chance. But nah, he's a pilot, a fighter, and more than anything a Filipino who refuses to back down. For Basa, the call to defend his country was louder than the roar of enemy engines. Even with just 15 minutes of fuel, he guns his engine and takes to the skies, joining Captain Jesus Villamor and a handful of other pilots. They knew the odds. 6 Filipino pilots against a swarm of enemy bombers and fighters, but they also knew what was at stake: the lives of their comrades, the safety of their homeland, and the honor of their flag. Imagine that, 6 Filipinos versus dozens of enemy bombers and fighters. You know the odds, but they didn't care. They climbed into the sky, hearts pounding, determined to make every bullet count. Up there, clouds streaming past, the sun flashing on the metal wings, Basa faces 7 deadly Japanese Zeros. The Zeros were faster, more agile, and bristling with firepower. But Basa had something they didn't, a cause worth dying for. His plane is old, but his spirit is fierce. The P-26 was no match for the modern Japanese fighters, but in Basa's hands it became a weapon of defiance. He's dodging bullets, twisting, fighting for every breath. The sky is a blur of motion, planes diving, guns blazing, smoke trailing from wounded aircraft. Every second is a battle for survival. Basa's fuel is running dangerously low. He knows he can't stay up much longer. But he refuses to break off, determined to protect his squadron and the men on the ground below. But the Zeros are just too fast, too many. They swarm around him, relentless, their guns spitting fire. A burst of gunfire shreds through his plane. Metal screams, controls go slack, and smoke fills the cockpit. And just like that, he's got no choice. He bails out, parachute opening like a prayer in the sky. For a moment, time stands still. For a split second, he's floating, caught between earth and heaven. The world is silent, the chaos of battle fading into the wind. But the enemy doesn't let up. They turn back, guns blazing again. Even as he drifts helplessly, the Zeros circle, determined to finish what they started. And in that silent, helpless moment, César Basa is struck down. His parachute collapses, and he falls to the earth below. His friends on the ground, guys he trained with, laughed with, can only watch in horror. The loss is immediate, the pain raw. Lieutenant Victor Osayas cradles Basa as he dies, the first Filipino fighter pilot lost in Muerto. In those final moments, there are no words, just the silent understanding of sacrifice. The airfield falls, silent. The men mourn not just a comrade, but a brother. For many, Basa's death is a turning point, a reminder of the cost of freedom, but the story doesn't end there. Even in the face of loss, the spirit of resistance burns brighter than ever. Despite the loss, Villamor and the squad still win the day. Against all odds, they drive off the Japanese bombers, saving the airfield and inspiring a nation. The Japanese bombers are driven away. The airfield, though battered, stands as a symbol of defiance. The survivors work through the night, repairing planes, tending to the wounded, and preparing for the battles yet to come. Every man knows that tomorrow could bring another attack, but they are undeterred. Victory, yes, but at a price that hits deep. The flag flies at half-mast, a silent tribute to those who gave everything. News of the battle spreads quickly. Across the Philippines, people hear of the bravery of Basa and his fellow pilots. Their courage becomes a rallying cry for resistance. In villages and towns, families gather around radios, listening to updates. Children draw pictures of planes, dreaming of becoming pilots like Basa. Today, Basa's name lives on at an Air Force base in Pampanga. The Basa Air Base stands as a living memorial, a place where new generations of pilots learn the same lessons of courage and sacrifice. He's not just a name in a textbook. He's a symbol of courage, of sacrifice, of what it means to put country above self. So, every year, airmen gather at his memorial, saluting the man who showed them what it means to be a hero. In flight schools across the country, instructors tell Basa's story to new cadets. His legacy inspires not just pilots, but all Filipinos to stand tall in the face of adversity. The war would rage on for years, claiming many more lives. But the memory of César Basa and his last flight would endure, a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. Decades later, veterans and families still visit his grave, laying flowers and whispering prayers. For them, Basa is not just a hero, he is a reminder of the price of freedom. And so, every time the flag is raised, every time a child learns about the war, César Basa's spirit lives on. His story is woven into the fabric of the nation, and that's the kind of history I'll never forget. The story of César Basa, the young man who soared into legend and whose last flight still inspires us all.
So hit that subscribe and ring that bell too, for history's wonders waiting for you. Billy at Works, let the knowledge ignite, exploring the past with all of our might.